This final video for the week is my feedback on the source discussion. I hope you were okay with reading the rather old-fashioned English. Although the language is a little bit complicated, the ideas in it aren't really that complicated. The first question was about how Berkeley, remember he's the governor, defends his actions as governor. Well, he talks about firstly how he was chosen by the people, or rather the property owning people who had a vote, as governor of Virginia. He's been faithful to his king. He does a little bit of poor me kind of special pleading, saying he took on the job even though it was a burden to him, even though it might have been dangerous. When he was first appointed, it was towards the end of the English Civil War, and it might have been dangerous to him to, as a supporter of the king, to become governor at a time when the king's supporters were seen by some people as traitors. He also talks about his experience. He's been 34 years in the colony, whereas Bacon's a relative newcomer. He's only been there for a couple of years. And then in terms of how he tries to condemn Bacon, well, he portrays Bacon as being an atheist, somebody who's really beyond the pale. He's a newcomer. He's only been there for 2 years. He also portrays Bacon as a traitor. He talks about how by rebelling against Berkeley, the king's representative, therefore by extension by rebelling against the king, he's doing something really wicked and treasonable. And he says even if he felt he was entitled to do so, even if Bacon felt entitled to do so, even if Bacon thought that his cause was just, rebelling against the king is treason, no matter how good your intention is behind it. This brings me to my next question about how the recently completed English Civil War plays a role in Berkeley's statements. These people are only about a decade and a half away from the restoration of the monarchy. The English Civil War, which divided Englishmen into pro-king and pro-parliament factions, was still a fairly raw memory for people at this time. So Berkeley draws on that a lot to make his case. Firstly, as I said earlier, he talks about how it was actually quite physically dangerous for him to become a governor when the king was out of favor. And he's really doing a big thing for the people of Virginia, volunteering to take on this role, even though it might be difficult for Berkeley to fulfill that role. He then talks about how, again, this comes back to the previous question, how treasonable Bacon is. He uses the recent memory of the Civil War. The people who rebelled against the king in the Civil War claimed to do so in the name of king and parliament. They were ironically rebelling against the king in the king's name, saying that even though they supported the king, their greater loyalty was towards the English people and the laws of England, and that the king was breaking his own laws, therefore deserved to be removed. And Berkeley is saying, no, you can't use that argument. Rebelling against the king makes you a traitor regardless. So he has the recent Civil War in his mind when he talks about that conflict. And the final question I asked you was about his attitude towards the Native Americans. Now, to understand this fully, we need to remember that one of Bacon's grievances and the grievances of his supporters was that they felt Berkeley wasn't doing enough to defend them against Native Americans. The poorer whites tended to be on the frontier. The better lands, safer lands closer to the coast tended to be dominated by the elites. And so the settlers were poorer and felt more vulnerable to native attack and blamed Berkeley. Berkeley is saying that while he's more than prepared to defend people if the natives get rebellious, get warlike, but he also says they're valuable. They're valuable as spies, as sources of information. The friendly tribes can inform on the hostile tribes and keep the English authorities aware of if there's any trouble down the line. So he's basically saying, you're accusing me of being soft on the natives. I'm not. I merely understand that we need to keep on good relations with some of them, but I'm also prepared to make war on them if necessary.